In a hospital, there were two elderly patients sharing a room. Both of them had an incurable disease, and fortunately, one of the patient's beds was positioned next to the only window in the room. As for the other patient, he had to lie on his back all the time. The two patients spent their time talking without seeing each other, and every day after the afternoon, the first patient would look out the window and describe the outside world to his friend. The other patient eagerly awaited that hour because it brought his life to life, as he listened to the description of his roommate's life outside. According to the descriptions, there was a large lake in the garden with ducks swimming on it. The kids would make boats out of various materials and play with them in the water. The women would walk arm in arm with their husbands, strolling around the edge of the lake. The view of the sky was a feast for the eyes. While the first patient carried out this process of description, the other patient listened in awe to this wonderful and accurate portrayal. Then he would close his eyes and begin to visualize this magnificent view of life outside the hospital. Days and weeks went by, and each of them found contentment in their own situation. One day in the morning, the nurse came as usual to attend to them, only to discover that the patient by the window had passed away during the night. The other patient only learned of his friend's death when he spoke with the nurse, as she requested assistance in removing the body from the room. It saddened him deeply to lose his friend. When he deemed it appropriate, he asked the nurse to move his bed next to the window. The nurse granted his request. In the afternoon, he reminisced about the time he spent with his roommate. He decided to try to sit up to make up for what he had missed during that time. Despite the pain, he gradually raised his head with his arms, propped himself up on one elbow, and turned his face very slowly toward the window to behold the outside world. And here came the surprise. All he saw in front of him was a blank wall of the hospital. The window opened onto an inner courtyard. He called the nurse and asked her if this was the window through which his friend used to gaze. She confirmed that it was. The room had only one window. Perplexed, she asked why he was so astonished. So he proceeded to tell her what his friend saw through the window and what he described to him. The nurse's astonishment grew as she told him, "But the deceased was blind and never saw even this blank wall. Perhaps he wanted to make your life happier." These words left the patient deeply moved. He realized that his friend had enriched his life by offering him a world full of beauty and joy through his words. A world that the blind patient himself had never experienced. The story of the two patients in the hospital became an inspiring lesson about compassion and the power of imagination, which can bring light and hope even in the darkest moments of life.